When you just have a chord symbol to work with, many decisions in piano playing are left up to you. The question of which notes to play is less complicated because there are a limited number of possibilities. The decisions about rhythm are less concrete. The options are limitless and can be overwhelming. In this video, I want to help clarify not only the challenge of improvising rhythms, but help to give you some ideas to expand and develop your rhythmic foundation. My name is Peter. Thanks for joining me at Our Worship Sound, where we're making worship keyboard technique and technology easier. I don't know if this analogy will help, but if you know what Jell-O is, Jell-O comes in a variety of flavors. You can add things to it, and you can make it into a variety of shapes. But you have to have something to pour it into to give it shape. And it's kind of the same way with playing notes. We've got to fit our notes into some sort of rhythmic context, otherwise it makes no sense. The thing is, with rhythm between different note lengths and meters and tempos, there's an infinite number of possibilities, and that can be overwhelming. But let's talk about some ways that we can help our rhythmic choices. Okay, so first of all, simple is almost always going to be good. I'm going to play something two different ways, and you'll hear which one sounds better. Here's the second way. So I think we would all agree that the first one sounded better. Even though it was very simple, I was just playing once per chord change. The rest of it was just too busy, too many notes, and it didn't sound good. It just sounded cluttered. So simple is almost always going to be good for you. My next tip is listen to other people, listen to other musicians. This is one of the biggest things that we can get from listening to other musicians. More than the notes that they play, as we listen to others, we can begin to pick up our rhythmic vocabulary, which goes so far toward determining our style as a musician. So if you hear a musician that you like, copy their rhythmic style, copy some of the rhythms that they play, and incorporate that into your own playing. Third, take a basic rhythm and shift it around. So once you hear a cool rhythm, start to incorporate it into your playing, but change how you're working it in. So I'm gonna take a simple rhythm and I'm gonna shift it around to different beats. Here it is on beat 1. Now on beat 2, 1. Now beat 3, 1, 2, 3, beat 4. So you hear how a simple played at different points in the measure really changes the character of the rhythm. So take a basic rhythm, learn to shift it around. The next tip is to play phrases that rhyme. And what I just showed you was a great way to do that. So you want to play phrases that make sense with each other. I'm going to give you an example of some phrases that don't make sense. So the first phrase was just something simple, and the second phrase was really busy. They didn't rhyme. And it's like if we were in conversation and I was talking about one thing and then I immediately shifted to a totally different topic. It wouldn't make sense to you. In the same way, keep some of your rhythms continuing into the next phrase, and that will help to make your phrases rhyme, and then it'll cause them to make sense. Next, we want to talk about practicing with a metronome or a loop, pretty much like almost all the time. And the reason why we want to do this is it's too easy to let your notes kind of be like Jell-O and spill all over the place when you're not playing with a structured time. So learning to keep your rhythm within the structure of a metronome's timing means it's going to help to take the proper form. Okay, so you'll notice everything I played has been with a loop. Just keep it locked in with a metronome or a loop. It's going to help your rhythm really settle in. Now, at this point, I want to talk a little bit about my Fluent piano courses. And one thing that I haven't done is I haven't ever done a Fluent piano rhythm course. And I think the reason for that is I've thought about it, and it just didn't make sense how I would communicate that, because the way you approach piano will determine your rhythmic approach. So example, I play rhythms differently if I'm thinking about chords than if I'm thinking about melodies, than if I'm thinking about playing in the background. And so we have those different courses to cover those aspects of playing, and each one has its kind of own unique approaches to rhythm. So you're gonna find rhythm throughout each one of the Fluent Piano video courses, and you can learn more about those at fluentpiano.com. But the other thing with those courses is that there are a lot of different tracks and tunes and a big assortment of things that you can play along with, so you always have something steady to keep you on point with your rhythm. So now let's talk about how we actually create rhythms on keyboard. Specifically, I want to point out two methods that I always try to avoid. One is playing a lot of continuous notes individually with different fingers. So here's what I mean. The other way is playing full chords continuously. Okay, one reason I avoid those is because they get really repetitive. The other reason is a lot of those rhythms might be covered in other instruments. So if you're playing in a band, there might be a guitar player who's strumming individual strings individually and creating that kind of individual note rhythm. Your drummer might be doing something like... And so we want to not step on their toes, but we also have the opportunity to do some more interesting things on keyboard. So here are some approaches that I prefer instead. If I'm thinking more of a chords approach, I like to think about what I can do between my left thumb and my right thumb. So let me kind of show you what I mean with that. Then if I'm thinking more melodically, I'll do something like this. Just kind of fill in the spaces. So again, with chords, I just kind of alternate between my thumbs to create a little bit of rhythmic texture. And when I'm thinking melodically, I'm just kind of free to add some different things where it makes sense. All right, so one learning technique that I always recommend, if I'm trying to get better at one aspect of my playing, I try to make the other aspects easier. And so if I'm thinking about, like, for example, if I'm trying to learn how to play and sing at the same time, I'll simplify what I'm playing so that I can also do something else. If I'm trying to work on something rhythmic, I'll really simplify the technique or simplify the notes that I'm playing. So here I'm going to try to do a technique called hemiola, which is a 3-against-4 rhythm thing. And I'm going to stick with the 1st and 5th scale notes for the key that I'm playing in. So again, focusing on a more challenging rhythmic figure, just simplify the technique, and that will make it easier to develop and work on your rhythm. And finally, incorporating all this takes practice. It takes you getting to your piano, putting on a drum loop, trying new things, making mistakes, trying it again. It has to be developing that skill through repetition and time. And if you do that, you'll get there and you'll cause rhythm to make sense for you in your playing. Again, if you're interested in learning more about Fluent Piano, check that out at fluentpiano.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon.